Good evening, I'm David Brown, and welcome to the Northern Sun Experience. As we celebrate the first week of 2017, we take a look back at another NSIC accomplishment in 2016. For the first time in 3 years, Concordia-St. Paul's volleyball team advanced to the Elite Eight in Sioux Falls. It was a return to form for the Golden Bears, who won 7 consecutive national championships from 2006 to 2013. CSP hoping to regain the crown, starting with their Elite Eight matchup with American International. First set, Golden Bears setting the tone defensively. Emma Lang with a block at the net. CSP takes set 1. Second set, Concordia showing off some power offensively. The serve from Anna Piaski is too hot to handle. Third set, match point, Casey Williams sets up Lang for the kill off the right side. A very businesslike 3-0 sweep. The Golden Bears would take on Lewis University out of Illinois in the national semifinals. Second set, see if this looks familiar. Emma Lang off the right side with another block. Third set, you know things are going well when this happens. A couple of low digs and no one gets Mariah Sampson's floater. And the semifinals end just like the quarters with a Casey Williams to Emma Lang kill and another 3-0 sweep. And in the national championship on December 10th, CSP took on Alaska Anchorage. First set, Casey Williams goes cross-court to Anna Schlake for the kill and a 1-0 lead. Second set, Emma Lang continuing to bring it on the defensive end, teaming up with Shelby Serve for the block. Third set, championship point, Casey Williams to Riley Hansen with authority. And Concordia-St. Paul wins its 8th national championship in the last 10 years.
It's a new team every year, and I'm so proud of this group. I'm so excited for them and just happy how they work super hard, and they've kind of gone through their ups and downs with this tournament and stuff, and I'm just excited that these seniors could close out the way they did.
When we come back, the last weekend of 2016 featured plenty of interesting results in NSIC men's hoops. Our analyst Jordan Dalton will break it all down next.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midcoast Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and Dakota Land Honda.
And welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience, joined by former Augustana point guard Jordan Dalton to break down NSIC hoops. Jordan, we're going to start on the men's side. Surprise of the season has to be Southwest Minnesota State. Mustangs 7-1 in conference play, 12-1 overall, and they ended Augustana's 38-game home winning streak on Friday night with a win. This was a team picked to finish 8th, middle of the pack in the NSIC. So how have they risen to the top?
Yeah, obviously the Mustangs must have taken some exceptions to that preseason ranking because they've just come out and played really great this year. They're a really persistent and resilient team, to be honest with you. They've already had 6 games decided by 4 points or less, and it just seems like they have a different comfort level as the game gets tighter and closer to the end, where they have a lot of trust in one another. Like I said, it's not always the prettiest game in the world when they play, but they always seem to make those 1 or 2 key plays towards the end of the game, whether it's getting a loose ball, knocking down a big-time shot, or getting a stop when they need it. They just find ways to win basketball games, and obviously it's resulted in great success early in the season.
They already have 12 wins this season. They had 13 all of last season, just to show you how far they've progressed. Well, another surprise has to be Upper Iowa, also 7-1 in NSIC play. They were responsible, actually, for Southwest Minnesota State's only loss in the NSIC. Statistically, the Peacocks don't stand out, really. Middle of the pack in terms of scoring, defense, rebounding, all these sort of numbers. So why have the Peacocks been so good?
Well, I think when you look at their style of play as far as in Upper Iowa, they do a great job in really just pressuring the basketball on the defensive end. In the last 8 games, only one team has scored more than 70 points, and that's been Winona State. So it's not surprising that they're off to a 7-1 conference season start. I think they just force teams to play at their pace, play at their level. And so when they get up and pressure the basketball, it's really turning into some easy opportunities on the offensive end as far as transition goes. And that's what you look at when you're a team that likes to really get up and use your athleticism and use your defensive pressure. You want that to turn into easy buckets in transition. And that's the easiest way to get things going on the offensive end. And so they've just done a great job. I mean, they're averaging almost 7 steals a game. And so they're having a lot of what we call like those live ball turnovers, meaning not only are they frustrating the offensive end, but they're using that pressure on the defensive end to turn into easy buckets. So they're off to a great start. Like I said, consistency is the model of greatness. So we'll see if they're able to keep that pressure going as we get further along into the season.
Upper Iowa 10-4 overall. They've lost to Minnesota State Moorhead in the quarterfinals of the conference tournament each of the last 3 seasons. We'll see if they can get past that this year. Well, let's get to your alma mater in Augustana. We already mentioned the loss to SMSU. They also lost to Sioux Falls the following night on New Year's Eve. Both cases, late three-pointers broke a tie game. So Augie was in these games. Obviously, this team isn't the national champions that they were last season. So is there any reason to panic, or does Augustina just need to be more consistent?
I don't think, when you're this early in the season, you ever look to panic. But I do think they do have some things they need to address on both ends of the court. It seems like on the offensive end, they really rely on Jordan Spencer and Mike Busak in that pick and roll situation a little too much. When they're at their best, they're having great ball movement, great player movement, making the defense shift, creating those closeout opportunities and easy opportunities on the offensive end. And it just seems like so often they rely on those two players to get them buckets toward the end of the clock situation. So as you get into some of these closer games, teams have seen the same play a couple of times, so they're kind of forcing other people to beat them. And I think that's why having a third scorer step up on a consistent basis, whether it's a Adam Byer or a Steven Schaefer, having those guys step up and not relying on Spencer to just make a miraculous play out of a pick and roll consistently is really going to help them out as they get further along into the season. Other end, on the defensive end, he just had too many mental lapses. When you get into those close games, one or two possessions can really determine the entire basketball game. And so when you have when you're playing a team sport like basketball, it only take one guy, to kind of break down mentally to give up a bucket. And they saw this weekend that can really cost you a game. So I would imagine Coach Billiter has their ear in practice this week. And I'm sure the thing he'll be stressing all week is just attention to detail. Because you've come too close to give up one or two buckets and that be the determining factor from a win and a loss. So I think they just need to get more consistent on both ends of the court, pay a little bit more attention to detail, but I think they'll be absolutely fine.
And they also need to have a short memory. They got a tough road game on Friday at Minnesota State Mankato. Well, switching to the North Division, now the leader of that is St. Cloud State, 6-1 in conference play. They've won 4 in a row, and they've scored at least 80 points in 6 of their last 7 ball games. So why is the Husky offense so proficient?
Yeah, I think when you look at the Huskies, the first place you have to look at is Gage Davis. He's a guy averaging almost 21 points a game, and he's actually leading the conference in rebounding as well. And so when you're a 6'4" guard that's leading the conference in rebounding, that just speaks to the volume of how he's out there, he wants the ball, he's hungry, and then he's so athletic and nice with the basketball. He's really shifty. When he grabs the rebound, he's going. So he's almost a one-man fast break. So he's instantly putting a lot of pressure on the defense right from the word go. And so I think the Huskies will go as far as he'll lead them. Obviously, they got a lot of help from Scotty Stone this weekend from the three-point range, knocking down 12 three-pointers. So just spreading the court a little bit more. But the Huskies start and stop with Gage Davis, and he's been unstoppable really, toward this part of the season.
Yeah, there's a reason he was named the preseason player of the year in the NSIC North Division. Well, when we come back, Jordan's going to break down the weekend that was in NSIC women's hoops. And welcome back to the Northern Sun Experience. Once again, joined by Jordan Dalton. We're going to talk NSIC women's hoops now. And Jordan, right now, the team that's leading everything with a perfect record in conference play, Minnesota State Moorhead. Dragons 8-0 in the NSIC, 11-1 overall. So what's working so well for the Dragons right now?
Yeah, well, it's a cliche as old as the game basketball. Great defense and rebounding is always going to win you championships. And right now, the Dragons are just excelling in both of those areas. Currently, they're holding their opponents to less than 54 points per game and less than 9 offensive boards a game. And so they put so much pressure on you on the defensive end that it really forces you into poor, low percentage shots. And not only that, they're limiting teams to 1 shot per offensive possession. And so they really have they force teams to really play efficiently on the offensive end. And so when you have 2 staples like that, it also helps you out on the offensive end because now there's less pressure. Now you can take your time, get the shots that you really want to, because you know that every single time you're more than likely going to get a nice stop on the defensive end. And so when you have a championship level team playing championship level defense and owning the boards like that, it's going to result in a great success. That's also a recipe for success down the road too, because defense and rebounding are just pure effort plays. And so it's a good recipe for sustained success, which is why they're off to such a hot start.
MSU Moorhead second in the conference in defensive scoring, and as you mentioned, leading to good things on the offensive end. They're second in the conference in assist-to-turnover ratio, so they're taking care of the basketball. Well, the leader of the South Division currently is Winona State, 7-1 in conference play. Warriors have won 12 of their last 13 games overall. They only have 1 player, however, in the top 25 in the NSIC in scoring. So how important is balance to a team like Winona State?
Yeah, especially for the Warriors, it's a very important thing. They have 3 players averaging double figures, and what it does is it just makes you more versatile emotional on the offensive end. Teams aren't able to key in on one specific player. They're also not able to help as much because the Warriors do have so many great weapons on the offensive end. It forces teams to kind of play more straight up with not as much help. So now they have a lot of talented offensive players that can just go create their own shots and win their own one-on-one matchups. For Coach Ballard, too, it gives them a lot of options. It really opens up the playbook when you have so many people that you trust with the basketball in their hands. And so you get into tight situations, whether it's low shot clock or later in the game, you have a lot of different options. And again, teams can't really game plan for one specific thing because once they shut down one avenue, they have multiple other ones that are open. And so that versatility has really allowed them a lot of great success toward the beginning of the season.
A lot of players shine for Winona State, but one in particular, Jenny Tuttle, was the NSIC South Division Player of the Week this past weekend. Well, the University of Sioux Falls, 6-2 in conference play. The Cougars lost last season's leading scorer, the NSIC Tournament MVP Taylor Varsho, to graduation. But with that 6-2 record, who is stepping up for USF this season? Yeah, and we talked about it earlier this season. Varsho is a tough player to replace because not only did she provide the numbers, but she seemed to provide a lot of emotional leadership and inspiration to the rest of her teammates. So right now, Maddie Robson is really playing absolutely lights out. She's great with the basketball. She doesn't turn it over a ton. She's averaging a league best 5.5, almost 6 assists per game. And so she's getting players into positions where they can score and they don't have to do a lot on their own. When she can penetrate, get 2 feet in the paint, create easy scoring opportunities for other players, it makes life so much easier on the offensive end. Other thing, Coach Trap Hagan has always ran a run and gun type of offense. He's always given his players the ability and the confidence and the freedom to shoot the three early and often. And they've continued to do that. They're knocking down almost 8 3-pointers a game right now. And when you play with that amount of pace, you're bound to be in every single game because in the blink of an eye, they can go on a 12-0, 14-0 run just because they have such a high-powered offense. And you have to be ready to strike really early, And so I think the combination of Robeson really getting in there, playing great, and then their ability to shoot the 3 ball has really kept them in a lot of games this season. Sioux Falls got a big win at Augustana on New Year's Eve. Well, finally, speaking of the Vikings, they've lost 2 of their last 3 after winning the previous 9 games in a row. And that one win was over SMSU at home, but it was a struggle against the 1-11 Mustangs for 3 quarters before they pulled away a little bit in the 4th. So is there a bit of holiday rust, or is there something the Vikings need to do to get back on the winning track? Yeah, I think if you look at a consistency between all 4 of their losses, in none of those losses have they scored more than 70 points. And so they're a team that has a lot of athleticism and really likes to push the pace. So I think they need to make a more concerted effort to push the ball, not only on missed opportunities, but also on made buckets as well. Because when they get out in the open court, that's when their athleticism can really shine and overpower teams. And so when they get into slow, drag-out possessions, they don't do as well when teams make them use all 30 seconds of the shot clock. So I think they just really need to force themselves to play with a little bit more pace and also force their opponents to play at their pace and really get that scoring into the mid-70s and low 80s, because that's when they have the most amount of success, and that's when their athleticism in the open court can really show. You mentioned their points when they lose a game. They're currently leading the conference, averaging 78.7 points per game. Well, we'll see you next week, Jordan. Thank you very much. You bet. All right, when we come back, our Under the Northern Sun Campus Alumni Feature showcases the University of Minnesota Duluth. Welcome back. It's time to name 2 more members of the NSIC's 25th anniversary team. Congrats to former Northern State track and field athlete Amanda Madden, who won 2 national championships in 2010, the indoor weight throw and the outdoor hammer throw. Congrats also to former Concordia-St. Paul athlete Lisa Harfield, who did it all for CSP, soccer in the fall, basketball in the winter, and softball in the spring. Well, speaking of multi-sport athletes, in just a few weeks, UMD will unveil the newest members of its Athletic Hall of Fame, including a combo baseball and football player. In tonight's Under the Northern Sun, former Bulldog Tim Battaglia sits down for a one-on-one interview with our correspondent, Zach Schneider.
We are joined right now by UMD soon-to-be Hall of Famer Tim Battaglia. Thanks very much for joining us. Appreciate it. And I say soon-to-be. I mean, next month is when the official induction ceremony is. Have you gotten used to that? Cloquet native, 2-sport, all-conference athlete, and now a Hall of Famer at UMD?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It does sound good when you hear other people say it. But no, a pleasure to be here, Zach. And yeah, very honored to be in this group going in 2017. So.
Take me back to that call when you found out that you were going to be in this year's class. What were the feelings that went through you?
Yeah, like we kind of talked a little bit off air, is you never really think of it when you get done. Yeah, I had a pretty fairly successful career going to school there, and was fortunate to be a member of two good sport teams with baseball and football. But you get out of there, you do what you can, and it's never really anything you think about. So when I got the call, I think it was early September from Bob Nygaard up there at UMD, and yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, I'm honored to be a part of the group. I got 4 other very deserving people going in with me, so I'm excited. It's been fun.
2 really good teams that you were a part of, 2 good eras for
Sure.
football and baseball. Start with football. You were part of the first ever team to go to the national tournament. You're the leader in catches, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns. Those records still stand. What's your biggest memory from playing at Molosky Stadium?
Yeah, it's kind of funny, talking about the records. My brother Steve, I was fortunate to play with him 3 years in football up there. He got redshirted and I didn't, so it was fun to split out and play opposite my brother. And he was the record holder there for a year. But now, he's still number 2 on all the lists, so he had a very successful career too. And he often jokes with me that my numbers are where they are because he was getting double teamed across the field. So, but no, like you talked about, being a member of the first national playoff team in football, and then later that spring in baseball. So, very fortunate, and just a lot of exciting and good memories up there.
There weren't probably a lot of really prolific wide receivers under Coach Molosky because of his 3 yards and a cloud of dirt philosophy. But since there's been a lot of really good wide receivers. Is it amazing to you that some of those records are still atop those UMD lists?
It is. It's, like you said, going from Molosky, where they probably ran the ball 90% of the time. We had Nielsen there when he came in, and I got to play my career under Bob. We'd throw the ball 30 times a game, and we thought, geez, this is fun, right? And now, you got, Schwager coming in after, and Weezy, now they're throwing it 50, 60 times a game. So, but yeah, it is. It's never anything, records are meant to be broken, right? And they're going to get broken at some point. But it's been fun. There's been some good ones come through, like you said, with, Winfield and Aker and my brother. But it's been fun. It's not something you expect to hold on to for that long, but I'll take it while I'm there.
And then in the spring, you switched over to baseball. Again, the first ever team to go to the national tournament. You were a part of that in 2003. You hold an all-time record there, hitting .411 for your career, 5 shutouts as a pitcher too. So that was more offense and defense when you got to baseball in the spring.
Sure, yeah. It was one of those things where I always joke around with all the guys I played with. I played football and baseball, like you said, and I always got to miss out on the not so fun parts with the spring football to roll around, and I'd be playing the real baseball season. And then likewise with football, the guys weren't too thrilled about football in the off season, so I was playing the other sports. So, but yeah, I had a lot of good guys on that team. Fostered some good friendships with everybody, and it was quite a junior year for me. I got to be a part of the football team going to the national playoffs for the first time, and then later that same spring as a junior in baseball. So, it was fun. We had a lot of different guys come in and be a big part of those teams, and it was a whirlwind of a year, that's for sure, and it was fun to try some new things and bring the programs to new heights at the time.
When we come back, part 2 of the interview with Tim Battaglia.
The Northern Sun Experience on Midcoast Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and Dakota Land Honda.
Welcome back. Let's get right back into part 2 of the interview with future UMD Hall of Famer Tim Battaglia.
We still see from time to time some two-sport athletes at UMD that come through, and I don't know if any of them necessarily have reached the heights that you reached on both teams, and maybe one or the other, but
Sure.
What did it mean to you that you were able to play both sports and kind of continue both of your passions at UMD?
Yeah, I was fortunate to play, under 2 great head coaches with Bob Nielsen and Scott Hanna. I don't think anything like that will ever work if the coaches aren't working together. I visited a few other schools before, deciding on UMD, even though they had the upper hand the whole way. But, the coaches were great. A lot of other schools won't allow that, and it worked out great around here that both coaches were up for it. And, again, very successful in both sports with a lot of good players. You know, we had Joe Cornetta, who's got some baseball records that played, and you know, Greg Akers. So there were a couple when I was there, and I'm not sure, you know, to this day if it's still quite like it used to be, but you know, with everything getting so specialized, it was definitely nice that I was able to do that.
And just one thing about success past UMD, tryouts in the NFL, Dallas Cowboys come to mind, and then drafted in Major League Baseball by the Cleveland Indians. So, I mean, you had the opportunity, and certainly the career at UMD that kind of afforded you some additional opportunities and some more fun, I guess, after you left.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it was a whirlwind time for me. You know, I got drafted after my junior year in baseball, and they wanted me to leave right away. You know, we had a good football team coming back, like we talked about, just going to the national playoffs my junior year. I wasn't ready to leave school then, and you know, had some hopefully football prospects down the road too. And then you know, football came around and had a couple tryouts with a couple NFL teams. So they went as good as they could go. You know, I mean, I did the tryouts, thought potentially might, you know, latch on with the team, but you know, things didn't work out, and it's obviously a tough gig to crack at that level. But you know, it's been fun to see now guys in the last few years under, you know, Nielsen and Weezy again, you know, with Odom going through and some of those guys, some of the linemen now. You know, hopefully I'd like to say that maybe, you know, some of the guys I came up with maybe kind of helped put UMD a little bit on the map, and I mean, they've obviously taken it to new heights since I got out of there with the 2 national championships. So.
That's all about the past, and let's talk about the future. Next month, what do you think the emotions are going to be when you see that plaque and see your name and you're officially a part of this Hall of Fame?
Yeah, like I said, it's exciting. It's never anything you think about, and you know, I can get all the phone calls and all the congratulations before right now, but until that day rolls around, when you're sitting there and actually, you know, hearing your name called and looking at the slideshow and that kind of thing, it's really going to hit home at that time. But it's exciting, you know. There's been so many good athletes come through UMD and, you know, various sports, and just to have your name mentioned in that category I'm pretty excited, I'm not going to lie.
Tim will be inducted to the UMD Hall of Fame on January 14th. Once again, a thank you to all of our NSIC member schools. Tune in next week for another Northern Sun Experience.